Before we go there, let's talk about that single Behind Your Shoulder. So let's talk about the Meduza. Yeah, just I mean, you don't have to go into phenomenal detail, but just talk me through that as a process from the very first time that you heard about it or were asked about it until like you say, until that probably leads to the deal that you were just talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking like what 2017. The Matoma record like went top 40. And I think a few people kind of took note of that and sort of seen that I was starting to do, some of this sort of more crossover, these crossover bits. And I was working with anyone and everyone that I could like work with in terms of like songwriter wise. So had these two young lads who didn't really have any track record, but just like super into writing songs, and started. I was working with them for probably about 6 months, and I just thought they were just like really talented, and they were just so eager and just up for it. So we were writing loads of stuff together. Then I got a call from Matt from Meduza, but Meduza didn't exist then. So him and Simon were doing their SDJM project together.
Yeah, they did. Did they do a version of a Backstreet Boys track?
Yes.
Were you involved in that?
No, I wasn't involved in that.
Okay.
But at that point, I think they'd had was it the Whitney Houston cover?
That's
and then
right. Yeah.
So that one had done quite well on Spotify and streaming, and it was around that time they approached me and they said, look, we saw you had the success with the Matoma record. Would you be up for like coming and writing for our SDJM project? Because we're looking for like more just original songs that can be like within that sort of lane. So I was like, yeah, great. I'd love to come in and write with you guys. So I said, look, I'm working with these two young lads who are songwriters. I think they're really good. They've got no track record, but can I bring them with me? And they were like, yeah, cool. Like, we're in London for a week. Like, just we've got one day set aside for you, basically. So we went in, wrote for, like, the brief was like vocal, sort of piano-y commercial house. Wrote a song. And they're like, yeah, this is great. Probably I think we'd finish by about 3 p.m., 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And they were like, look, do you want to, we've got the studio till like 6 or 7. Do you want to like to start a new idea? So we're like, yeah, cool. So started this new idea, and literally by 6 p.m., 7 p.m, we had all the main parts of Piece of Your Heart done.
You disgust me, no.
But I mean, that's down to the talent of Josh and Connor, because they're just super talented songwriters.
So Josh and Connor, the good boys.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, this is all pre Good Boys, Meduza. Yeah. So what happened was,
and how finished? I mean, how finished are we talking when you say finished? Are we talking like a V1 rough demo? Are we talking like what we essentially heard on radio? Like how finished are we talking on that day?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like all the main vocal melodies, the show me a piece of your heart, piece of your love, and the da 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 da. That was all done like there and then in the session. Even like the the sort of like the classic now Meduza bass line, that was all kind of done there and then. So it was a really quick process, and I find with the more successful records, they tend to come around like that in a really fluid, cohesive, you're not even thinking about it kind of way. And then so like a couple of weeks later, I got a call from their management. They were like, look, we're really excited about this idea that you did at the end of the session. We want to create like a new, because it was so detached from their other project.
Yeah,
they were like, we want to create this new like artist project around it. We're going to call it Meduza. What do you think? I was like, yeah, sounds great. They said, we're going to do like a bit of like promo, send it out to a few DJs, and kind of just gauge the feedback. But we feel like it's really strong song track. So I was like, yeah, cool. I didn't really think much of it other than it's a cool song. Like,
and to out of my own interest, but also to clarify for people listening, like at this point, are you part of Meduza? Do you think you're part of Meduza, or are you very aware that you were there as a writer, like as a gun for hire? Like, is that like so? They didn't even really need to clear these things with you. Essentially, they were being polite by telling you, but they didn't even really need to tell you about it being called Meduza or anything.
No, but they obviously there was like you still have to kind of get everything agreed in place. Okay. Yeah, I definitely wasn't like a part of it because it was like their thing, but I was a part of it as a writer, like you say. So yeah, just you
were saying that basically they were going to send it out, but you weren't. Well, I think you were going to say, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think you were going to say, yeah, I didn't think it was going to be a global worldwide smash.
Yeah. No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, you just do these records it's like the same thing you do every day. Is like you go into sessions, work with new people, work with people you worked with before, and it's the same sort of process, like write a song. But you don't come out of that. I mean, sometimes you come out of it going, oh, that's going to be a big record, and it's not. And then other times, like then, it was like, I just thought it was a cool record that would exist. It might go top 10 on Beatport, and a few cool DJs would play it. But where I was maybe naive in my thinking was that I was thinking at it from more of the point of view of like what was going on in the charts and what people were playing then, because then it was much more commercially piano-y house sort of sound. What I didn't actually pick up on was like it was so different from everything else that it created this lane of its own, because there was a real lack of music like that had a strong song behind it, but also satisfied that kind of cool Camel Fat Disciples sort of sound, and I think that's why it kind of broke through in the way that it did. But I mean, yeah, going on from like just after we wrote the song, they sent it around to a few DJs. It got like really strong reactions. Mr. Jam played it, I think, 2 weeks in a row on Radio 1. And then this like whole bidding war like unleashed for the record. So this was like summer 2018.
Oh, so it got played on. That's really interesting. So it was played by Mr. Jam prior to even being signed to a label.
Yeah, no, it wasn't signed at this point.
That's interesting.
And so there was like huge reaction. Then all the labels like jumped on it. Then they were like, Jam needs to like stop playing this because we're going to set it up for like the following year. So that sort of happened, and then winter came and kind of was just like writing records, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, to be honest. And then I was in a session with Josh, Good Boys, I think it was around December or January, going into 2019, and we're like, oh yeah, when's that like PC Heart record coming out? And it was like, oh yeah, like I think February sort of time. I was like, oh cool, like see what happens. And then the record came out, and just
I think that's my favourite comment. You're like, and then snowball.
I mean, just completely unexpected. I mean, I suppose actually at that point, I realised there was a lot of hype on it. We ended up doing like a single song assignment on the publishing deal because all the publishers wanted to sign everyone's like.
So what does that mean for people that don't understand? What does that mean?
So a publisher looks after the songwriting interests on a record. So if you're in an exclusive publishing deal, you're exclusively signed to that publisher as a songwriter for a period of usually 3 or 4 years, potentially longer. At this point, I was unpublished, so I didn't have a publishing company representing me, other than for like just single song assignment deals. So a bunch of us were unpublished as well. So it was an exciting time because like Sony and Warner's had come in for it, and they were all sort of like outbidding each other, and then Universal came in and we did the deal with them. So that was exciting.
You don't need to tell me like numbers, but first of all, I mean, I'm asking these questions A because I'm interested, but B, there might be a lot of people out there that are listening that don't know how these things go behind the scenes. So as a writer, how much say do you have in this? Like, do you have any say about where it goes, or are you just sort of being carried along by the management? Like, do you have a say when you're like, oh, I don't want to sign it to Warner, or I do want to sign it to Sony, or are you just going, yes, someone likes the fucking record?
Yeah, like you've definitely got a say in these things.
Okay.
probably more so on the writing side, because on the label side or the master side, we just kind of just left it up to them with who they ended up going with.
And did you receive? And again, I'm not asking for money here, but did you receive like an advance? Did you receive money in advance of it being released, like when it's signed?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and that's just for people who don't understand how it works. That's just an advance on future royalties. So they could pay that amount of money. The record could flop, and you don't owe that money back. But they're Universal in this example would be like out of pocket for that money. So that's a loss for them. But this is the gamble that the big major companies they take on records. So and then obviously the record came out in February of last year, and started streaming really well. And within a month or 2 months. It did take a little bit of time to get going, but I think a couple of months, and suddenly we appeared on like Capital Daytime playlist and Radio 1 playlist, and it was like, oh my goodness, this record's actually going now. And it was like an incredible time, an incredible summer really, of just going to Ibiza and hearing just random DJs play it in their sets, and be all over like radio, and people driving down the street in their cars and you hear it playing out. And just an amazing time, and everything that we work for as musicians, producers, writers, DJs, from the very beginning, we all aspire to have successful records like this. You don't know where they're going to come from, but for it to finally happen in such a big way, for all of us involved in that record, was just like such an amazing thing. Like, just super grateful for it. Like I said, you can't expect these things, and you don't expect these things. But yeah, amazing.